Okay, I think some of you may have joined at meetings that I had earlier today, so this will be a little bit of a refresh. Excellent. All right. So I think it's really important for me to just talk about the background, particularly for those who may not know about some of the details in terms of why we are here, and some of the background of where we have been. And then I'll go through and talk a little about the considerations, the proposal, and then the timeline, as well as how to give feedback outside of the space. So as I mentioned, we are currently in a position where we don't have enough drivers to be able to offer full service to those who are eligible within our district. In the beginning of this school year, we started off with a shortage of drivers. We tried to navigate with what we had, and we were constantly running late routes that were 1 hour late, 2 hours late, sometimes more. It was unpredictable. Family might get a call the night before, family might get a call at 6 a.m. the day of. It was just very challenging. And so we ended up suspending about 140 routes, servicing thousands of students across the district so that we could provide a little bit more predictability and timeliness for those who were receiving transportation. Since October, when we suspended those routes, we have been continuing to work with our transportation provider to bring back routes as we have more drivers available. And so we are at a point now where we have about 50 routes that are not running. We'll be able to bring back a few more routes throughout the rest of the school year, but we will not be able to bring back all the routes for all those who are transportation eligible. And on a daily basis, we get comments from families about the challenge that is a result of the district not being able to uphold its commitment to providing that transportation. Particularly for our working families, our families who have other considerations that just require the dependency on transportation. And so that is why we're here with a proposal to do something different that allows us to be able to meet those needs across our district. So for quick background, we moved from a 3-tiered schedule to a 2-tiered schedule in the 2017-18 school year. We, in the past several years, have gone through 2 changes. The first was making a switch between our secondary schools and our elementary schools. Our secondary schools used to have bell times that were first, and we made the switch. And then that second change was moving from a 3-tiered schedule to 2. So when I use the term tiered schedule, that correlates to our bell times. So right now we have 2 bell times, one for all of our elementaries, and then one for our K-8s or in our middle and high schools. And this proposal, which would bring us back to a structure similar to what we have had before, is essentially 3 bell times, what we are sharing as a proposal for a 7:30, 8:30, and 9:30 start time. So with our current 2-tiered plan, which is what we're currently operating with, it requires us to have 364 buses, of which we do not have. And then an additional 10% on top of that for standby drivers, such that if a driver is sick or is a no-show, we can still provide transportation to get kids to school safe, on time, in a predictable way, so that they're ready to learn for the entirety of the day. We move to a 3-tiered schedule in line with the proposal we have. We will require about 50 fewer buses. And that is essentially what we would need to be able to ensure that we can provide that transportation to those who are eligible. And then just also noting that this proposal is anticipated to save the district approximately $5 million. For those who may know a little bit about our budgetary situation as a district, we are we do have an anticipated budget deficit for the next several years. And so as we look to think about our district goals and commitments and other initiatives, we have to think really critically about the way that we're spending money in order to be able to prioritize the things that we feel will have the most impact on our students of color for some educational justice. So this next slide just highlights some of what I've already shared. I will also just share briefly that in preparing this work, we have already had the ability to have conversation with athletics, with parks, with before and after care providers, and school and community partnerships to talk about some of the impacts, some of the challenges, and some of the ways to mitigate them. I will be really transparent and share as I move through the presentation some of the challenges that we've already heard and some of the benefits that we've heard from these partners around this proposal. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the logistics, essentially how we created this proposal. And then the next slide will share the actual proposal. This point in time, this is available on the district website, as well as the actual proposed tiers is also available. And a family letter went out today with translations in all of our top languages. So the draft start times are 7:30, 8:30, and 9:30. And for our district, in order to ensure that we can provide and run these routes on time, we need an hour between bell times. That's because a typical route is about 45 minutes. Some may be less, but on average. And then you provide that 15 minutes for buffer. So we have to build a system that has 1 hour between routes. Currently, we have 7:55 and 8:55 for the most part. And so we can adjust the exact start time, but we have heard things like 7 a.m. is too early, and 10 a.m. is too late. So that's why we have proposed a 7:30, 8:30, 9:30 as an in-between for that. And so the other thing is that in our current structure with our 2 tiers, we have more elementary schools than secondary schools in our district. And so with them all in one tier, that creates the need for more buses. And so with this proposal, we have had to split elementary schools between tiers. You'll see that they're, for the most part, in tier 1 with a very small number in tier 2, and then the rest in tier 3. We have included our secondary schools in that second tier as a way to allow for adolescents to start later, per some of the research that was and work that was done with the last conversation on bell time changes. And then it still allows high schoolers and our middle schoolers to get out early enough to be able to participate in athletics and other after school activities such as jobs. And then the last thing I will just note that these tiers can essentially be switched. We came up with this based off of the feedback that we have heard thus far. And, in particular, so far, we have heard challenges from families about the early start for 7:30 for our elementaries. But if we were to switch that to another scenario, that would put our secondaries either in a position where they're really early, and that goes against some of the other things that I just shared. And that's part of why we're sharing what I'm gonna go over in the next slide. So this next slide is a capture of what schools would fall into what tiers under this proposal. What we have shared on the website lays out each school. So if a family wants to go and see their particular school, it's demonstrated that way. We realize that that could be a little bit heavy on the eye. So have come up with this as a way to be able to share in spaces like this. I was in the CSEC meeting earlier today and also got some good feedback about some other ways that we could share this information in a way that is accessible to families, particularly if we create like a flyer that has this and are able to translate it into different languages. So we'll be continuing to work on how we can share this document and this information in some other ways to make sure that people are able to get the information and absorb it. But just walking through this proposal, and the first tier are only elementary schools with a start time of 7:30 and an end time of 2 p.m. So a 25-minute shift from where we currently are. And then the early release Wednesdays would just be the same, be a 25-minute shift earlier. Our tier 2 schools would start at 8:30. Our elementaries would end at 3 p.m. and then our middle and high schools would be 3:20. And all of our high schools are together in the second tier. A piece of feedback that we have heard from our partners in the district, as well as others. So having high schools together in the same tier is important for scheduling and across some of the work that we're doing to align high school schedules. So that was a critical piece of how we were thinking about anything that we would be proposing. And then middle schools, here we have all of our middle schools except Denny in this second tier. Denny and Chief South, because they share a campus, can't be on the same tier. So we put them in the third tier. Have already gotten some feedback about the challenge of that, given the fact that Denny is currently in tier 1 with a 7:55 start time. So we will be looking to do some evaluation on some elements of this, as we continue to receive feedback. We have to ensure, though, that it still allows us to be able to run an efficient plan that gives us a bus count that we feel like we can ensure that we can provide consistent and on-time service. So it's not a matter of being able to say, oh, we can do major shifts between this. This is pretty much the foundation for us to be able to move forward. And then the third tier is going to be the rest of our elementaries and then K-8. And the K-8s operate similar on that elementary schedule. So it would be 9:30 start with the 4 p.m. end time. And the last thing I will note about this is that some of our option schools with continuous enrollment are not included in this tiering chart because they do not currently operate on a standard tiering schedule with our bell time. So that's Skill Center, Middle College, Interagency. That is why you don't see those schools in particular listed here. All right, so as I mentioned, I wanted to be able to highlight the things that we've already heard. And so I'll go through this quickly because you can probably also read some of these things, but wanted to be really transparent about the fact that we have heard that there are challenges with this. In the best case, we would have this win-win scenario where we could create greater efficiency within our schedule that would allow us to be able to provide transportation to all those who are eligible and have start and end times that work for all families. But we unfortunately recognize that that's not the case. And so being able to receive this feedback and think about how we can navigate it, move forward, mitigate it, and work with partners to manage this is really important. And we're continuing to receive feedback from families and schools as we move forward over the next month around this proposal. So I talked a little bit about the high school start times and their ability to be able to access athletic fields for practice and games. We've also heard that older siblings often care for younger siblings at schools, and so different dismissal times can be challenging. We've also heard that later start times for older students who care for younger students is challenging, right? So right now we have them in that middle tier, but even for those elementary schools that are in the first tier, that could be challenging from that perspective. Right now, though, given the fact that we have our secondary in the second tier with our elementary in the first, we hope that this may help in some instances. Also, again, just highlighting that we have heard feedback around the sleep research for adolescents needing more sleep and having that 8:30 be a critical start time for better outcomes for students. We've also heard the ask and the need to coordinate with aftercare programs and community groups, and the fact that these changes may result in increased childcare needs, particularly for those schools that start at 9:30. And then for those that start at 7:30, it will require potentially a little extra time at the end of the day where there would be a need for more care. And so we've been continuing to talk with providers around that and how we can support some of the changes that they would need to navigate. We have also heard that there's concerns for families to be able to get up early, get their student up early, as well as staff to manage that first tier time, that time that's 25 minutes early from our current. We've also heard that the very early and late bell times mean more students traveling in the dark, which is currently a challenge for many during our winter months, given the limited amount of daylight that we have. We've heard that there might be some difficulty scheduling PD for elementary staff, particularly because right now all of our elementary schools are in the same tier, as well as difficulty scheduling IEP meetings or other parent meetings. And then as far as it goes for, most of what I shared just there are concerns, challenges that we've heard thus far. We'll talk about some of the benefits. This plan that we're bringing forward allows us to be able to service all transportation eligible students in a consistent, predictable, and on-time way. This plan is also consistent with practices in other local districts and best practices across the country. We have looked at our neighboring districts and they all operate on 3 or more tiers. With start times as early as 7:20 and as late as in the 9 o'clock hour. And then in terms of best practices across the country, they're really such that we are utilizing our fleet in an efficient manner by having multiple tiers, not only from the perspective of the resources that we are utilizing, but also in a way that we're able to provide drivers a living wage by having more hours and running 3 tiers. It provides cost saving to the district. Talked about the positives with the later start time for high school students, while it also balances the ability for high school students to start a little bit earlier and end a little bit earlier than their current times. Right now, students who are participating in after school activities in middle and high school often have to leave early, which interacts with learning time to be able to access those other activities. And then because we have had a driver shortage and have not been able to provide transportation to all eligible families this year, that has reduced our ability to provide transportation for other means, other activities. And so if we continue in a way that doesn't allow us to provide full service, that means that we are not going to have buses for other means. We don't have buses for athletics. We may not have buses to be able to take students to before and after care. We may not have buses for field trips. And so this proposal also allows us that ability to be able to utilize buses for other activities that we're not able to this year. So the last thing I want to share is just a little bit about the timeline, next steps. This is the link to the information on the website, which was posted today. It also was linked in the family letter that went out this afternoon. On that page is also a direct Let's Talk where families can provide their comments, questions, concerns in their home language. Already have many comments that have come in, as you can probably imagine. And then next steps, had the operations committee earlier today. I think I saw Fred join us, Assistant Superintendent of Operations, Fred Podesta. So he can let me know how the rest of it went, because I came from that meeting and we had not finished our discussion. So the anticipated timeline from what I had gone into that meeting was discussion at the school operations committee, board introduction on May 4th, and then action on May 18th.
Thank you, Ashley, and thanks everyone for having us here. The operations committee did unanimously move the board action report forward for considerations, which means it would be introduced at the next full board meeting per the schedule that Ashley is showing on the slide.
Okay, great. Thank you both. Ashley, that's your last slide, is that correct? Okay. Thank you both for being here. I know both of you have had very long days. We have just a couple minutes for some questions or comments. And then I want to also say that because this is a hot topic and this is a reduced amount of time for us to have questions and comments about this, we can collect those and send them to Fred and to Ashley, and we can return responses via email if that's necessary as well. So if folks want to raise their hands, if you have any questions, please feel free to. I'm going to start. Megan, if you want to speak to this into space, you can. Your comment in the chat was, if high school started at 9:30, a lot of practices and clubs can meet before school instead of after school, but having to care for siblings and get jobs would be hard. Was there any thought process behind before school activities versus after school activities? I think, Megan, that's sort of the question you're getting at.
I mean, I don't have a lot of sympathy for sports being a priority, but I do think that, you know, I just have more sympathy for families who need childcare and for kids who need to get jobs. So, but I don't know, in high school, I went to volleyball at 6 a.m. So I know that we can do a lot before 9:30 too.
Part of the athletics consideration, and again, it would vary with different kinds of sports, are daylight hours on fields. And so that would be a consideration, again, for some things in the morning. I think moving to 9:30, it would buy us those 35 minutes. So, you know, we can talk to our partners about that as well. Does that leave any openings for before school? And then there are some before school activities already. You know, does this truly, you know, how much time does it truly open up?
Manuela, I see you put something in the chat as well. Would you like to speak to that?
Sure. I've been, hearing from families, it's a big concern. But there's some idea of doing staggered bell times. Is there a way to do that? How would that look like? And have we done that before, as people say? I wasn't around when it was like that, but apparently it's been done before.
Yeah, so a staggered bell time so the challenge with that is it would still require more buses than we have the ability to be able to provide, if we aren't staggering in such a way that it would essentially align with the concept of a 3-tier. So if we took our current schedule of 2 tiers and tried to stagger the bell times in some way, um, a route still has to run and finish before it can get to the next one. And so staggering again without being in kind of like 3 essentially, some form of tier is going to mean that we'll just need to run another route. And so that's the challenge there. If you look at our previous bell times when we were in 3 tiers, they were slightly closer together. It's about a 50-minute gap instead of an hour. The challenge now, just with the size of our city and the overall traffic, that's just not feasible for us to feel confident that we could run routes on time and run it in a 50-minute schedule. So
Thank you.
And then John asked if you could speak to the process for selecting elementary schools for tier 2 and 3.
yeah, so as you can see, the majority of the schools, elementary schools, are in tier 1. And then part of how we also put together the tiers overall, and I guess this is particularly most relevant for the elementaries because those are the ones that were split. We had to look at from our elementary to middle feeder, and then as well as what would be serviced outside of that. How many buses in elementary required, and then what part of the district it was in, and then how a bus then would be utilized for that next tier and then the 3rd tier. And so it's basically like a system to think about, the 1st tier, 2nd tier, 3rd tier, right? Those are all one driver driving 3 separate routes that are going to be in the same area. And then we have to factor in how many routes each school has, because each school doesn't have the same number of routes. So one school may have 1, we could have another school that has 10. And then we have to factor in the middle school and high schools that are serviced in the area that also pair with those elementaries. And so that's how we ended up with what school was in what tier. One other consideration to that is that after considering all of that, the result which we shared is essentially our most efficient plan. So outside of some of the considerations that I shared for high school, middle school, and then the kind of the basic plan in terms of how we put elementaries into which tier. If we deviate from the plan that is currently proposed, it's just going to require more buses, right? So at some point you get to a point where we would not be able to run the plan with a number of buses that we would feel confident we could service our families in a predictable and on-time way. To that extent, we are continuing to hear feedback, particularly from families, providers, and school leaders. And this is a draft. We do anticipate there might be some adjustments based off of what we hear.
Okay, and we are running out of time, but so I'm just going to read these last 2 questions that I see in chat, and then hopefully you can sort of answer them together. And I think that this next question follows what you just said pretty well, is if you're able to share how many students actually ride use our bus system currently, or in an average year before COVID? And then also, what other options have you explored for scheduling routes around the needs of actual riders versus potential riders? And after that, if there are other questions, we will be emailing them for you.
Yeah. So about 20% of our families are eligible for transportation, and ridership is somewhere within the 80%, mid 80% range of that. Um, and so I think that answers that part of the question. Have we explored the option of scheduling routes around the needs versus potential riders? Yes, we have. And so that's something that we are going to continue to work on and utilize, just so that we can hopefully, create even greater efficiencies. We do anticipate, though, that that's not going to save us enough buses to be able to continue on our two-tiered schedule. As I mentioned, we would need at least 50 additional drivers than what we have. And scheduling routes around ridership, while it may save us a few buses, is not going to save us buses to that extent. And the other piece to that is also utilizing ridership may reduce the number of riders on a route, but it's not, and in most cases, not going to reduce the need for a route, right? And so those are some of the things that we've looked at, but we still anticipate doing some more work around asking families if they're planning to ride, and trying to continue to support better planning around actual ridership. And so we'll just acknowledge that information, historical information that we have around ridership, is utilized as we think about a route, but we still think that we can do better at making things more efficient. So.
All right, thank you so much, and thank you for being here. And we know how to get a hold of you if there are more questions or concerns that folks want to ask. And I really do want to just reiterate, I really appreciate you being here. I know that you all have been talking about this a lot today, and Ops Committee went for a very long time as well. So appreciate